Welcome to Flosstube and Variety Show number 152. Today is Friday, April 18th, 2025. And I'm Emily Williams in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Thank you so much for joining me. I didn't have any trouble knowing the date today because I'll tell you more in the Variety Show portion. But I'm very happy that you've joined me today, and I hope that you will see some things that you like or that are interesting. Let me just be sure everything's within reach. Yes, more or less. Yes, today's Friday. I've done a lot of stitching this week, but I don't have much to show because I did a few stitches here, a few stitches there on different projects and didn't do enough on several things to bother pulling them out. Notably, under the roof of blue Ionian weather, I only did about 400 stitches, and you can hardly tell. So I'm not going to pull that out. I worked a tiny bit on Bertram, again, such a small amount, not showing you. Oh, Harriet Salt, I did 6 digits, I think. Again, not enough. I might have done a couple of letters as well. But you'll see it next time. It'll still be there. But I do have some cross stitch to show you, which of course is the Flosstube part of this. This is Margaret Hutton, Hands Across the Sea. This was the special project last May that the workshop at Queen City Sampler Guild had with Nicola Parkman. That was a really interesting workshop. This sampler is full of specialty stitches, and so the workshop was learning how to do those, and here's my progress overall. So what you'll see is that I jumped ship on the last 2 rows of the alphabet just because I really wanted to get down to where the queen stitches begin. So I did these 2 motifs partially. I didn't do them all. There's flowers to be added. But I wanted to get down to that because there's a little video that we have access to until the 1st of May, roughly, which is Nicola showing how to do that queen stitch. And I wanted to be sure to be working on the queen stitch before that video became unavailable. So I just made a quick path down there to do that. And I'm reasonably pleased with that. I think it's pretty good. The diagram in the booklet is very good. So there's 3 more little queen stitch motifs like that, and then at the bottom of the chart, these tall hollyhock looking flowers are queen stitches, the flower part. And then the only other specialty stitch in the bottom part of this is the over 1. There's quite a bit of over 1. Her name is over 1, and these little crowns with initials are over 1. And surprisingly, there's no satin stitch in this. And I say surprisingly because I would have sort of imagined that the peacock's feathers might have satin stitch, but they don't. Doesn't mean I couldn't put satin stitch in those. We'll see. By the time I get down there, I may be eager enough. Oh, there is long stitch. These palm tree type trees have long stitch in them. So that's another specialty stitch, but it's not one that needs a lot of instruction, I would say. So, Margaret Hutton. I have it in mind I would like to finish this year. I don't know if that's really possible, but I am making progress. That's good. Hannah Green, 1826, the Queen of the May, last year. This is the one that I am leading a stitch along, and I'm going to say right now, I said it when I laid out the stitch along to start with, but I didn't say it enough. there's a lot of stitching in these sections down here. These are 4 sections. I laid it out as 4 sections. April, K, L, and M. I don't remember what months those are. I think that this will be next January, December, November. I think that's what it is. November, December, January. My current urging is when you start May, when I start May, I probably am still going to be working on April. And as I go along and do May, when I've finished May, I'm going to start working down here or on this one. Because it is a lot of stitches down there. These sections up here at the top were on purpose small to allow time to work out this over one verse part. But I actually think these won't take much time, and extra time I'm going to spend down here because this is incredible amount of stitching in the lawn and animals and the house. So I just am a little word to the wise on that. Oh, I should show you the actual stitching, not just the thing. So here's the whole thing. Remember, I made a mistake on the orientation of my fabric, and that's why I'm going all the way across the top. And here is where I am on the section, the grass. I really, really like this sampler. Love the colors. It's fun to stitch. I'm doing this 2 strands of DMC over 2 linen threads. This is 36 count, Just the Ticket by Tabbycat. Just the Ticket is called for fabric, and I'm using the DMC as called for. So I worked on that, and I've worked some on Jane Thompson, 1838. I have finished pretty much everything. Well, in the main sampler, I've finished everything above this dividing border, and this week I put in more of these fleur-de-lis type things in that dividing border. I have just 5 to go, and I started on the motifs that are below it. So you see a little crown and that interesting little bird. So in this light, you can kind of see that lightest color against the fabric color, but in person, not very much. Even from a distance, it's hard to see it, because sometimes when you're close up, and especially under magnification, you can't tell, which is a little disappointing, frankly, because I don't want to stitch something you can't see. You tell me. I'm going to have to look at this in the actual video to see what it looks like. And in particular, I think that, it's possible that the antique looks like that there's these sections that are very ghosty. And, okay, that's fine. So I have it vaguely, loosely, I should say, loosely in mind to finish Jane Thompson and Margaret Hutton this year. I have a lot of other things I have to stitch this year, including the Jane Greenough piece for the workshop that's part of the Mrs. Parkman's Academy of Needlework in Swindon, England in October, which I haven't done any more on since the last time I showed it, which I'm sure was more than a month ago, but it'll get done. That I have until October. I have not worked on any finishing, even though I have things that need finishing. Excuse me. This week just wasn't a big stitching week, as it turned out. Even though the table was piled high with cross stitch most of the week. It was just piled. It wasn't actually being worked on. So that is the stitching. It's pretty brief today. Oh no, okay. Well, that is my active stitching, but let me show you what came in the mail. I think I mentioned last time that I ordered some charts from Hands Across the Sea, which came. So let me show you what I ordered. So first of all, she sent a card, which is I have to put, sorry about the crinkling. People always say that, and I never find it very disturbing. But this is from Lucy Barber, 1857. It's pretty. Yeah, I'm not going to stitch this, I don't think, but the card is nice. So what did I order? Well, this was a little bit of a spur of the moment. This is a very pretty, elegant Quaker sampler, and Hands Across the Sea hasn't done many Quaker samplers of this type, so it was kind of interesting, but I liked it. It's just 2 colors. I think it's just 2 colors. Yes, green and mauve. But I like it. It's pretty big, 294 by 277 stitches. But of course, as typical Hands Across the Sea, the charts are so clear and easy. Sophia Doggett, 1804. So maybe someday I'll stitch that. I'll show you that last. Ah, yes. Oh, yes. Here we have Oscar. The Needlework of Oscar Topsfield, 1904. And the booklet tells about Oscar. He was a sailor, a young boy who was sailing on a British ship. And he did this little sampler for his parents. And Nicola and her team created the 2 smalls from it that are shown here. And I probably will do this one of these days about related to Nativity Sal, which is this weekend. I should be working on that this weekend. But it's interesting because if you look at this, parts of the letters are different colors of thread. And I have not read the description in here to find out whether it's really true that that he stitched it that way, because that just seems so bizarre. But he must have. I don't know how else it would have happened. It has 9 colors in it. Very interesting. I mean, I suppose I'll stitch it that way. It's going to be aggravating. Teresa, you stitched it. What did you think? So the whole sampler is here, as well as the 2 little projects. The sampler is 142 by 158 stitches. Very pretty. And interesting that it's by a boy. So it's sort of in my Bertram collection. And I also decided, after thinking about it for quite a while, that I wanted to get this, what's it called? Multiply Kindness. This is an original design by Nicola Parkman. And the border is just gorgeous. And the multiplication table, multiplication tables and the table of nobility ranks is not uncommon in samplers. And of course, I like numbers. So I actually think I will. This isn't just bought to hold on to and look at. I think I will probably stitch it. Very, very pretty. And then this has been on my wish list ever since I first discovered Hands Across the Sea. And Borrett 1646. I mean, what a sampler. Now, interestingly, and I'm so glad about the way her charts are drawn, Nicola's, most of this is not cross-stitch. In fact, until you get down to the bottom where the alphabet is. Is that cross stitch? I think it is. I mean, I'll have to do some reading, but I believe that this down here is cross stitch. But the rest of it is all other stitches. But I just think it's so beautiful. The very top may be cross stitch partly. But it's over 3 threads, and it has some, let's see what stitches it has in it. I mean, things I've never heard of. All right, it has a reversible cross stitch. Well, don't hold your breath on that. It has running stitch, double running stitch, which I've learned. The double back stitch, it's reversible stitch. And the diagonal double back stitch. The Montenegrin stitch, which is complicated. Hopefully this is very clearly marked about where to use these. How to turn corners with it, and exactly the stitch path. I mean, it's extremely detailed. The detached buttonhole stitch, which is used as a fill-in stitch, different places. Down in this section, I think. I guess those are the main ones. And this is set up, or it was maybe stitched reversibly. So here's the front, and here's the reverse, pictured here in the book. Don't hold your breath whatsoever on that, on me stitching this reversibly. I don't think that I think that if somebody said you have to stitch reversibly, I think I would say, you know, I think I won't stitch it. I won't do it then. Because it's just that's too complicated for me. It's more than I want to undertake. And as you have seen on those few occasions when I've shown you the back of my stitching, I don't really care that much. Yeah, there may be more cross stitch in here than I can tell, but we'll see. Yeah, I think there is quite a bit of cross stitch in here. Anyway, 1646. That's quite something, isn't it? So those are the things I bought. Now, today is April 18th, 2025. 250 years ago was the Midnight Ride of Paul Revere. And this is an illustrated children's book I have of that poem with the illustrations by Monica Vachula. I don't know if I'm saying her name right. And I'm not going to read this poem in this video, but I have put up, or I will have put up, another video, a special edition video, where I do read the poem and show you some of the pictures from this book. But I wanted to point out some beautiful things about this book. First of all, I think you can see that the pages have been printed as if they were linen, which I just think is interesting. And the illustrations are just beautiful. And of course, most of us in school, if you grew up in the United States and went to elementary school, you learned at least part of this poem. Listen, my children, and you shall hear of the midnight ride of Paul Revere on the 18th of April in 75. Hardly a man is now alive who remembers that famous day and year. One if by land, two if by sea, that line is from this poem. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow was an American poet who lived in the 19th century, 1802 to 1877, I think. His dates are in this book somewhere. But he wrote this poem in 1861 as the Civil War was beginning, with a goal of encouraging abolitionists and Union forces to give up, to do what they could to ensure the freedom of all Americans, i.e., to free the slaves. And there's some poignant lines in here, which are not the ones that we probably remember as school children. And I doubt I've done this justice in the video that I made of myself reading it. But I've read the poem and I've shown you some of the illustrations, and I'm going to make sure that it gets posted today, because today is 250 years later. And sort of the famous events of the Revolutionary War began today. That is the anniversary of them. April 18th, the Battle of Lexington and Concord, the shot heard around the world. All of these statements and famous things began in this particular battle, and they were memorialized by Longfellow in this poem. It is true that the poem does not exactly accurately depict precisely what happened that night, but it captures it well enough for us to appreciate how this nation began and what bravery and courage it took for these regular farmers and townspeople to take up arms against the greatest power on earth at that time. So anyway, Paul Revere's Ride is, I'm going to read it and show you most of the pictures in the special edition video that will also be on this channel from today. I'm not putting it in here because some of you won't be interested in it. It has nothing to do with cross stitch at all. So I didn't want to clutter up this video with that, but that is sort of my variety show presented separately. So what else is going on? Well, this is Easter weekend. Today is Good Friday. Many churches around the world are celebrating Good Friday with special services. I remember as a child, I think our service was at 3 p.m. at St. Mark's Church in Leroy. And I remember walking down the street, and I had this in my imagination that at 3 o'clock, it was always cloudy. Well, it's 2:15 now, and there is not a cloud in the sky. So that was my childish imagination, that Good Friday was always marked by cloudiness. And maybe in Leroy, New York, where spring had begun just barely, it might have been cloudy very often in Holy Week. So maybe that was true. Yes, there are some funny stories from Good Friday. I've told them before on this channel, but since it's come to mind, I'm going to tell you again. So there was a lay reader named Roy York, and Mr. York was an older man. When this story took place, I would say he was in his late 60s. If he was probably in his 70s, actually. And it was Good Friday, and we in our church did a Good Friday service, which included the reading of the 7 last words of Christ, which means going to 7 different passages of the Gospels and reading a number of verses, or maybe a long stretch of verses or a short stretch of verses, covering the 7 last words of Christ on the cross. And the way it is done in the Episcopal Church is the reader stands at the lectern where from which the gospel is presented, and he says, or she says, the reading today is from Matthew chapter 25, verses 7 to 17. Here beginneth the reading, and then reads it and the people say something at the beginning. And then he reads it, or she, Mr. York, I'll say he because I'm thinking of Roy York. Mr. York reads it, and then at the end he says, "And here endeth the reading." And the people respond, "Thanks be to God." And the thanks be to God is not thanks be to God that the reading is over. It's thanks be to God that there is a reading, that the gospel is available to us. So Roy York had to get up there, a few passages plus the 7 last words, a lot of different scripture readings. So he got up and he would put his bulletin at the place where he was starting, and he would say, "Here beginneth the reading from Matthew chapter such and such, verse such and such." And then, being a wise and well-trained reader, he would find where his ending point was going to be, and then he would read it. And when he got to the ending point, he didn't have to refer back to the verse number. He knew that that was the stopping point. And he would say, "And here endeth the reading," and everybody would respond, "Thanks be to God." So here we are, the solemn service of Good Friday. My mother and I are in the choir, so we're sitting in the choir loft, which is behind the lectern, and out there are the people, the congregation. And the rector, Mr. Campbell, was here, and Roy York was over here. The rector's in the pulpit, and Mr. York is in the lectern for where the readings happen. So he got up, did a few readings, and then he got up and he did one, and he said, "Here beginneth the reading from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 25, verses 7 to 17. Here endeth the reading." And the people said, "Thanks be to God." And Mr. Campbell leaned over toward the aisle, toward Mr. York, and said, "You have to read it." And Roy York said, "I did read it." And Mr. Campbell said, "Roy, you didn't read it. You have to read it." And he said, "I read it." And Bernie Campbell said, "Roy, you didn't read it." And Mr. York is getting more irritated. "I already read it." And Mr. Campbell said, "You have to read it." And in the meantime, my mother and I are back here. We can hear all the whispering. Don't know how far out into the congregation it made it, but it's not a large church, so quite possibly everybody could hear this. And we are back here on the solemn service of Good Friday with our worship folders in front of our music folders in front of our faces because we are laughing. If my mother and I got laughing, we couldn't stop laughing sometimes. So this whispering goes on, and Roy York gets louder and louder, and Mr. Campbell gets louder. And then finally he said, "You have to read it. You have to read it." And Roy York said, "Do I have to read it again?" And at that point, my mother and I are dissolving, but we have to try to be, and you know how it is in those quiet, solemn times when you're supposed to be serious. And if a little thing sets you off, sometimes that's the hardest possible time to stop laughing. So I can't remember whether we made it through the next hymn without bursting into laughter at every breath. I don't know, but it's a memorable Good Friday service. And I have there's so many wonderful Good Friday services in our own church here. Chapel Hill Bible Church does a beautiful Maundy Thursday service with the 7 last words of Christ and the assurance of the purpose for which Jesus came and died. It's such a beautiful remembrance of that great event, of the most important thing that happened in the world ever, Jesus' death and his resurrection that we mark on Easter Sunday. But Roy York stands right up there in my memory of what's important about this day. And when I get to heaven and I have a chance to talk with him again, I wonder if we'll talk about this. If I'll say, "Do you remember that time?" And he'll say, "Oh my goodness, you and your mother were laughing incorrigibly back there." Maybe he will. We were very incorrigible, I'll tell you, when it came to laughing in church. Okay, enough of that. I hope that you all have found something interesting, and I hope you'll take It's 12 minutes long. I did already make the video, so once I put a screen at the beginning and the end, it'll be 12 minutes and 15 seconds long. The video of me reading Paul Revere's Ride by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. I hope you'll check that out. I hope I did it reasonable enough justice as a poem that it will capture the history of the day and Longfellow's intent in writing it to some degree. And I hope that you're enjoying your stitching. I hope you'll have a lot of stitching time this weekend. I hope you're having beautiful spring weather the way we are. And I guess that's all for today. Many blessings to you, friends.